During the National Salute to Hospitalized Veterans, Chuck Norris demonstrated more than just skill or fame. He showed a bond that transcends medals or recognition. His strength, which became legendary on the big screen, isn't merely the kind of physical power we associate with action heroes. It's a quiet, steadfast resilience, a strength that often goes unseen. It's the kind of strength that helps you rise when life seems determined to keep you down. At 85 years old, Chuck Norris is recognized globally for his films and martial arts, but his real story began long before Hollywood lights and red carpets. It's a story of discipline, courage, and perseverance, a journey shaped by fear, loss, and uncertainty. A childhood in shadows. Carlos Ray Norris, known to the world as Chuck Norris, was born in 1940 in the small town of Ryan, Oklahoma. On the surface, Ryan appeared quiet and unremarkable, but within the walls of his home, Chuck experienced a childhood filled with hardship. Poverty, fear, and tension were constant companions. His father, Ray Norris, had served in the military and returned home a changed man, burdened by the scars of war, both visible and invisible. The man who once fought for his country was now wrestling with inner demons, often turning his pain into anger, which created a turbulent and fearful environment for Chuck and his siblings. Nights were long, filled with shouting and slammed doors, and the tension was thick, leaving Chuck constantly on edge, wondering what would happen next. It was in this environment that Chuck learned to stay quiet, to hide, and most importantly, to survive. The light of a mother. Amid the darkness, Chuck's mother, Wilma, was a beacon of hope. She bore the weight of raising 3 boys alone, navigating the hardships with unyielding faith and strength. She worked tirelessly to provide for her children, scrimping and saving whatever little she could to offer food and a semblance of safety. Wilma's prayers and her constant care were the anchors in a house filled with uncertainty. For young Chuck, his mother's love and resilience were the only constants. Her strength became his refuge, and he clung to it even when the world around him seemed unrelenting. At 14, Chuck's fear had evolved into something more, a quiet determination. He silently vowed that one day, he would rise above the life that had threatened to define him. This resolve was put to the test one fateful night when his father's anger escalated beyond control. With a hammer raised in fury, Chuck, trembling yet determined, stood between his mother and the source of her fear. In that moment, he made a vow. He would never become the kind of man who allowed rage to define him. It was a moment of transformation, a boy forged not in victory, but in survival. Leaving the past behind. When Chuck was 16, his mother made a bold decision to leave the toxic environment that had shaped their lives. Packing up the family, Wilma moved them to California. It wasn't a promise of happiness, but it was freedom. The chance to breathe and escape the fear that had hung over them for so long. For Chuck, this move was more than just a relocation. It was a rebirth. The scars of Oklahoma didn't vanish, but they became a quiet source of strength, shaping the man he would eventually become. The journey to California marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, one that would test Chuck in ways he had never imagined. The discipline of the Air Force. At 18, Chuck sought structure and a way to build himself from the inside out, so he joined the U.S. Air Force. The military offered him discipline, a framework where chaos could be transformed into strength. Miles away from home in the turmoil of his past, Chuck immersed himself in routines that built both his body and mind. It was in South Korea that Chuck first encountered martial arts, though it wasn't love at first sight. The training was grueling, the mats unforgiving, and his early attempts were filled with failure. But with every misstep, Chuck heard an internal voice urging him to persist. He was learning not just how to fight, but how to overcome fear and self-doubt. Over time, every kick, every strike, every form became a symbol of his quiet determination. Martial arts began to speak to him, offering therapy and a way to master the chaos of his past. Returning home and building a future. In 1962, Chuck left the Air Force and returned to California with more than just military discipline. He carried the embodiment of resilience. He opened a small karate school with little more than a dream and unwavering determination. The early days were tough. His dojo was often quiet, with only the sound of his footsteps echoing across the mats. But Chuck showed up every day, pouring his heart and soul into teaching and demonstrating discipline. Slowly, students began to arrive, drawn not just to his skill, but to the integrity and perseverance he embodied. By 1964, Chuck's focus shifted from teaching to testing his own limits. Martial arts competitions became his proving ground, a way to measure the man he had become against others, and perhaps more importantly, against the boy he had once been. Through countless trials, practice, and endurance, Chuck evolved from a shy, uncertain youth into a disciplined, relentless competitor. A champion emerges. By 1967, Chuck had become a formidable force in the world of martial arts. He won his first major title, and his reputation quickly grew. For 6 consecutive years, he was the professional middleweight karate champion. He earned respect not through showmanship, but through his unwavering dedication and the quiet strength that had carried him through years of struggle. The medals and trophies were not his true goals. They were markers of perseverance, proof that a boy who once feared the world could now master it. But the transformation didn't stop at martial arts. Chuck's next challenge would come not in the dojo, but in front of cameras, lights, and a global audience. Crossing into Hollywood. In 1972, Chuck Norris stepped onto the set of The Way of the Dragon in Rome, facing off with Bruce Lee, a legend of martial arts. The encounter was intense, blending 2 philosophies, 2 legacies of martial arts, and 2 formidable fighters. Chuck held his ground, earning Lee's respect and proving that preparation and resilience could carry him through even the most daunting challenges. But Hollywood was far from easy. Rejections and closed doors followed, often for reasons beyond skill. Chuck was too quiet, too disciplined, or simply too unknown. Yet each no became fuel for his fire, a reminder that perseverance mattered more than immediate success. Finding recognition. In 1978, Chuck's breakout role in Good Guys Wear Black transformed him from an overlooked fighter into a cinematic icon. The 1980s solidified his place in Hollywood with films like The Octagon, Lone Wolf McQuade, Missing in Action, and Code of Silence. Fans admired him not just for his martial arts skills, but for the values he represented: loyalty, courage, and strength tempered with integrity. However, behind the cameras, Chuck's life was far from perfect. The fame and adoration he received couldn't erase the quiet moments when memories of loss and struggle surfaced. Personal loss and resilience. Chuck's personal life was marked by tragedy. The loss of his younger brother in the Vietnam War left an indelible mark on his heart. The grief he felt was private, a shadow that followed him despite his success and fame. Chuck's personal relationships also brought both joy and challenge. His first marriage to Diane Holacek, which spanned decades, endured difficult early years, but the pressures of fame and travel eventually led to separation. Adding to these challenges, Chuck later discovered the existence of a daughter he had never known, born during his time in the military. This delayed connection brought both regret for lost time and the opportunity for reconciliation, teaching Chuck valuable lessons of patience, forgiveness, and love. Love and new beginnings. In 1998, Chuck married Gina O'Kelly, a steady and loving presence who brought warmth into his life. Together, they built a home filled with laughter, love, and family. In 2001, their twins, Dakota and Dan Lee, were born, and their Texas ranch became a true home. The focus of Chuck's life shifted from his career to his family, from public accolades to the quiet joy of everyday moments. The man who had once fought to survive now fought to nurture, protect, and cherish the small but profound moments of life. Trials and devotion. Life continued to test Chuck's resilience. In 2013, a medical crisis involving Gina threatened her life. What began as a routine procedure escalated into a life-threatening situation. Chuck's response was unwavering. He devoted himself entirely to her care. He traveled, sought treatments, and remained by her side through every uncertainty. Through this ordeal, Chuck's strength was no longer about martial arts skills or physical prowess. It became a testament to his devotion, courage, and commitment to the woman he loved. Strength beyond the screen. Chuck Norris's life teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of strength. True strength is not defined by titles, medals, or physical prowess alone. It's about resilience in the face of fear, discipline in the midst of chaos, and the capacity to love and protect when circumstances threaten to overwhelm. From a small house in Oklahoma to the lights of Hollywood, from martial arts dojos to the quiet vigil by a loved one's bedside, Chuck's journey shows that true strength is forged through adversity, humility, and perseverance. A life of discipline and legacy. Even in the midst of public success, Chuck remained committed to the values that shaped him: discipline, hard work, and respect for others. Martial arts were never just a career for him. They were a language of life, teaching him to channel fear, focus energy, and cultivate confidence. His legacy extends far beyond films and championships. It resides in the lives he touched, through teaching, mentoring, and embodying values of integrity and courage. Every act, every decision, and every sacrifice reinforced a lesson that resonates universally. True strength is not measured by what we conquer outwardly, but by what we endure and nurture inwardly. Reflection and inspiration. Chuck Norris's journey is more than just a biography. It is a meditation on human resilience. It reminds us that childhood scars, loss, setbacks, and personal hardships do not define our limits. They shape our capacity to grow. His story encourages patience, persistence, and courage in the pursuit of self-mastery, personal growth, and love. Behind the iconic screen presence, the accolades, and the fame lies a man who has faced life's fiercest battles and emerged not unbroken, but unbowed. Conclusion. From Ryan, Oklahoma to the stages of Hollywood and the quiet moments on his Texas ranch, Chuck Norris exemplifies a life of discipline, courage, and devotion. His story is a testament to the power of resilience, the strength found in love, and the capacity to endure when the world seems most challenging. It shows that true heroism is not defined by public recognition, but by the quiet, steadfast commitment to rise above adversity, protect those we love, and live with integrity. Every challenge, whether from childhood struggles or personal loss, has forged a man whose life offers lessons far beyond martial arts or films. Lessons about love, courage, perseverance, and the enduring power of the human spirit.